a big blessing to Baal HaBayit, Baalat HaBayit. בעזרת השם הקדוש ברוך הוא give them ברכה והצלחה.
אמן.
שמיה גדולה.
אמן.
רק גדלנו וכתב לכתב. בעזרת השם, may this home be full only of simcha, only of bracha.
Amen.
May we gather together only with celebration, and may we all that should be able to see them grow financially,
Amen.
spiritually,
Amen.
for children, and all what their hands will be involved with.
Amen.
And for all the tzaddikim that you come here, I see that there are a lot of single, beautiful boys and beautiful girls. בעזרת השם הקדוש ברוך הוא give everyone ברכה והצלחה.
Amen.
שמיה גדולה.
Amen.
And may we all בעזרת השם celebrate together and all the tzaddikim tzaddikat celebrations. Amen.
Amen.
Now, Rabbi, we are in a very exciting time of the year. As we can all imagine, in every single house in Am Yisrael, in every single corner of the world, we are all preparing for a very important holiday. Chag HaPesach. Now, you know what Chag HaPesach, according to the Zohar Kadosh, isn't just a holiday of celebrating the past. Isn't just a redemption that we all celebrate as a people, as history. Rather, it's an event that we can all take the opportunity to bring redemption into our own life. We can all ask, what's this very simple question of the connection? Zohar Kadosh is very simple. Without getting too complicated, that will be for maybe another evening. Zohar Kadosh says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He is above time. He just took us out of Egypt. That the date of Pesach is the date of the Geulah. In the past, in the future, and in the present. The idea of Pesach is a date in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu influences the world with Geulah, with redemption. Zohar Kadosh says, the idea of redemption, the idea of all of us coming to a place of returning to our home, to being under the supervision of our Father, is most likely on Pesach. So we can see that Pesach isn't just a date of remembering, rather a date of preparing and a date of hoping that we will all achieve a redemption, a Geulah. I know, but a lot of the times, when we think about Geulah, we immediately think about, okay, Mashiach. Mashiach will come on a donkey with a shofar, and you will redeem us, and you will announce that now the world is changing, and from that point on, our life doesn't look the same. We have to understand that this idea of Geulah doesn't have to be Mashiach. The idea of Geulah can be each and every single personal individual that is here, with his own needs. We all have troubles, we all have goals, we all have obstacles. We all have things that we are praying, that we are hoping, that we are waiting to occur within our life. Even a change that is positive within our own personal life is the Geulah. And the most likely date that we could achieve such a Geulah is Pesach. So Zohar Kadosh says, we have an opportunity to look at the past, see how redemptions come to fruition, and maybe learn and prepare ourselves to receive and to celebrate a redemption of our own. And like we mentioned, it could be personally, as an individual, or it could be for all Klal Yisrael. It's all the same thing. So Chazal gave us an advice. Our sages said, you want to understand redemption, you want to understand change, you want to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu's interference within your life, look into Pesach. Look into the story, understand it, learn from it, and that will be the guideline, the guidebook of how we can all act to bring within our life change. So you know what throughout the last month, we've been looking into the whole story of Yetziat Mitzrayim and trying to break it down in different ways, in different corners, in preparation of this holiday. You know what this week I was sitting, and I was thinking about the question that I had for years. And I think it's a question that we should all maybe have thought of if we look into the story and really try to find what happened moments before the Geulah. The Torah says that right before Bnei Israel were released from Egypt, HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked from us as a nation to do our first mitzvah in fruition, to act. What was this mitzvah? So, like what the Rab mentioned, it was to take a sheep, to make a sacrifice, and not to just sacrifice it for God, but rather to make a feast. And to take this feast and to eat it as preparation for Now you might ask, maybe the feast has no connection to the leaving of Egypt. No. Chazal say that the details of this feast were very particular, to the point where it says that in order to be properly prepared for this feast of leaving Egypt, they all got dressed. They put their backpacks. And some even say they had to hold their stick. Whereas we know when people would travel a long length, they would take a staff or a stick to ease the road. When the Jews ate the feast of Pesach, of Korban Pesach, of Leil Seder essentially, the first one, they were prepared to leave exile, to leave their troubles, to leave their sufferings, and to come into redemption. We always asked ourselves for years, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking us for the first request as a nation. The first deed we can all do. Why did Hashem choose that first mitzvah to be a meal? Normally, when you would think about coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, being more spiritual, it should be involved with more spiritual things. Maybe a prayer, maybe a tzedakah, maybe some sort of study, maybe the lesson of how we should treat one another. Out of all the mitzvot that we have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose one very particular mitzvah. And it was the mitzvah of eating Leil Seder. Why is that preparation for the Yom? Why is that the most worthy mitzvah that Hashem could have chosen? Out of all the mitzvot, I would have thought of so many different ones. No. Specifically, eating Korban Pesach. It's very unique. And we see that it's not just a unique occurrence. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses a feast to be a preparation for Geulah. We know that at the time of the Geulah, at the time of the Mashiach, the time when we will all be completely redeemed, Chazal say that there will be something that we will do seconds before Mashiach will come. And that is the feast of Seudat Mashiach. The meal of Mashiach. And Chazal say, with this meal, Mashiach will enter. This will be the gateway to bringing the redemption to the world. So we see that this meal is truly a concept of Geulah. But why? Why does eating a feast have anything to do with Mashiach? Now we can bring the question more applicable to us. Pesach evening, Leil Seder. We're going to sit around our tables. And the head of the table is going to say, Pesach is the date of Geulah. And tonight could be the night that we will hear that the Mashiach is here. If that's the case, should we be sitting on tables, drinking wine, laying down, stuffing ourselves with bread, matzot, meat? Is that a way to respect? Is that a way to honor the coming of the Geulah? If Pesach is truly a date that represents our chance to receive Geulah, we should be acting like Yom Kippur. Dressing in white, not eating, being very serious, being very focused, trying to focus on spirituality, studying to prepare. Not a date where we sit, eat, and drink. And it's not just sit, eat, and drink a little bit. We literally need to force ourselves. 4 cups of wine, 5 kazaitot. Every year, it's one of the hardest things to swallow. 5 kazaitot. It's not an easy thing. Why is the feast our preparation for our chance of Geulah? So now, I was thinking about this a lot. And this week, I came up with a little bit of a thought that I think that could be a good start of coming to a place of understanding what is this Chag all about. There's a beautiful Zohar that talks about the 2 states that the world can be in. And as you could possibly imagine, based off the fact that we're talking about Geulah, that Zohar was referring to the fact that there is a state of the world which is exile. Like we are today. We are not under HaKadosh Baruch Hu's supervision. We are alone, essentially, to fend for ourselves to a certain extent. And then there is the state of redemption. State of Geulah. State of when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above us, He's within us, He's around us, and He controls every single thing that occurs within the world. Or in other words, a perfect world. Zohar HaKadosh boils it down to 2 sentences. And these 2 sentences are also advices for us to understand how to become a part of each state, whether it be the state of redemption or whether it be the state of exile. Zohar HaKadosh says, these states can be boiled down to the sentences of redemption is a person that is eating from the table of God or the table of his father. And exile is an individual that is independent from the table of his father. A person that doesn't need to eat from the table. A person that gets his sustenance from someplace else. So we really need to try to understand what was the Zohar trying to mean, and what tool can we apply from this teaching within our own life. So now, like all things complicated, if we want to truly understand them, we have to break them apart. Strip them to fundamentals. And if we understand them as fundamental, it's easier to not only construct them, but also see how we could apply them on a day-to-day basis. Take this idea of redemption and exile. We can understand the states in a very simple manner that we can all comprehend it in an easy way. Exile is a person that's not home. A person that's not in a controlled environment. A person that is not within a place of comfort. Exile can be any place. Exile can be in our mind. Exile can be in our body. Exile can be in our country. Exile, in its definition, is a person that is not home. On the opposite side, redemption is comfort. It's relaxation. It's understanding that the person is inside a controlled environment, a protected environment, an environment of positivity, an environment of sustenance, an environment of continuation. So based off of this idea, we can understand that our need to be redeemed is actually fairly simple. It's just to come back home. It's just to return to the state of comfort and of protection of home. That is Geula. You know, but this idea of coming home in its entirety has a little detail that we can add. When a person invites his family, like we're all going to do in Pesach, every corner of the world, all the children living in different places of the world, there is a moment that is truly the significance and makes it official that an individual is back home. It's not when they drag their luggages to the door. It's not when they put their stuff away in their room. Rather, it's a different moment. And this moment, it really symbolizes this idea of returning to that state of home, of redemption, of comfort. What moment is that? So he said, maybe we can say, based off the word of the Zohar, it's when we all gather together, sit around the table, and start to eat. And that meal that we eat is not just food for the sake of food, but rather we look around the table and we say, look, we are all in Baal Habayit's comfort. We are all in the owner of the house, the father's controlled environment. We are all home. And in order to make that official, we consume sustenance to make it like a point that we are all within this person's bubble, this person's aura, this person's protection, this person's realm. That is the idea of coming home. Not just sitting within the house, but truly connecting to the people and to the environment that is there. In the opposite hand, there is something that a person can do. Enter into the house, be within the house, but show great separation. Show desire to not be connected. And it's something I think many Persians can relate to. Or anyone, Moroccans also. And that is we invite guests. The guest comes to the house, and of course, with Sfaradi, you have to give him something to eat. It's your way of bringing him into your home to honor him. And the man sits there on the table and he says, you know, I have no need to eat on the table. Because on my way here, I stopped by and I filled my stomach with food. Immediately, as the host, it's not about the food that you care that you didn't eat or doesn't want to participate in your feast and your table. Rather, it's the energy that that person creates of a desire to not be connected with the people that are within that home. So maybe we can say the idea of coming home is sitting and consuming and being connected to those around us. The idea of desiring to be in exile and desiring to be separated is the person that looks at his consumption just as food that stuffs in his stomach. looks at this idea of sitting and connecting with all the people that are within that home, not as what is important with consuming. Maybe we can say, based off the advice of the Zohar, now we understand a very, very perfect, simple, step-by-step, how to either bring redemption or either how to bring exile. How so? It is something very simple. A person throughout his life consumes a lot. Maybe we can say that what the Zohar really wants us to know is that a person must take every single thing he consumes and not consume it for the sake of food. Like the guest that immediately is going to be hungry, so ate on his way there. It must be consumed to take it as an opportunity to connect with Baal Abayit, to connect with the controller of the home, the owner of the home, the environment in which you enter into. Maybe we can say, the secret to bring Geula, to returning home, is making sure that everything we eat is not just for the sake of food. That everything we consume is not for the sake of just to fill ourselves, rather for the sake of life. Rather for the sake of eating what is His. Rather for the sake of being under His protection. Rather for the sake of having energy to do more good. Rather for the sake of taking this opportunity of sitting to break bread, not just to eat, but to connect yourselves with Baal Abayit. To connect yourself with the individual that controls this home. And this individual that we're talking about is who? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A secret to reach to Geula is actually very simple. It's doing the day-to-day life that we already do. Consume, eat, live. But it can't just be a consuming and living and utilizing what we have around us just for the sake of utilizing. Rather, we must take it as an opportunity. And on the other hand, the other person just eats and consumes and uses and takes and wants to gather. And he does it for the sake of just eating and consuming and gathering, nothing else, just lust. That person will not have comfort. Eventually he will feel lost. Eventually he will feel empty. Eventually he will feel purposeless. Eventually he will feel that he's truly homeless, in exile, without reason, without protection, without a comfort aura in which he can take part. And this Rabotai is not just about food. It's anything that is around us. We are creations of consumption. It could be food, drinks. It could be the chairs that we sit on. It could be the homes that we live in. It could be the cars that we drive. It could be jewelry. It could be everything. We should consume. We should use, but we should do it not for the sake of consumption, but rather for the sake of using the property of connecting ourselves to Baal Abayit. And Baal Abayit, in this case of scenario, isn't just a normal individual. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We eat, not from our food, but rather because God allowed us to be in His home and eat from His food. We drink, not to just drink for the sake of wetting our throat, but rather we drink because it would show honor to Baal Abayit, to the owner that we are consuming from Him. We rest, we show comfort, not just to rest and show comfort, but rather to be a part of this entity's aura, to be a part of this entity's controlled environment. The more we can do so, the closer we come back home. Because like we mentioned, being home is not just standing in the house. Being home is truly connecting to those who are around you. And humans connect by consuming. So consuming is actually something much deeper than we feel. Eating and using the tools that are around us are much more powerful than we can possibly ever imagine. And the proof of that is actually something very simple. Now, we know that there was a sin that broke the world, shattered the world, created destruction until today we're fixing. What was that sin? Who can tell us? One sin that occurred that broke the world. No. It's a dad, the tree of knowledge. What was already the tree of knowledge? What was already so bad about the tree of knowledge? What was already so negative about the tree of knowledge? It was simple. It was consumption. But it was a consumption not for the sake of being home, but rather consumption for the sake of consumption. Zohar says, when we consume and when we eat, it doesn't just come within our presence and leaves. Rather, it slowly replaces us. We know that when we eat, those molecules don't just disappear. They become blood cells, they become bone, they become flesh. They become who we are. Zohar says, what makes the difference of the consumption that becomes a part of us isn't the food itself, but rather the intention that we have in mind. And that intention is only what's left with what we consume. So our intention behind our consumption is truly how we define ourselves and how we present ourselves. So in appetite, from here we can learn that it's actually a very positive thing to try to want. It's a very positive thing to consume. It's a very positive thing to gather. It's a very positive thing to want to grow. The secret and what makes it valuable and what makes it purposeful is the intention we have with it. And as long as that everything is within our life has intention, purpose, and meaning, not only that we will succeed in our endeavors and succeed in what we want to achieve, but also after we will build what we set out to achieve, we'll be left with something with meaning. We know so many people that when they were young, went out and they worked, they fought, they did everything in their power to try to reach to something. But maybe throughout their journey they lost sense of what was the purpose of all this. And then they come to a later age. They feel empty. They feel lack of taste. They feel that what they achieved didn't satisfy them. They feel alone. They feel that they don't have what they went out to find, which was happiness, which was comfort, which was this idea of redemption. Abutai, the secret of it is just finding the purpose. And ensuring that every single thing that is within our vicinity has meaning and has presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we do so, we essentially pull ourselves closer to the table of Hashem and make it clear to the creations and to the world around us that we are coming. So in our time, I'm sure many of you are thinking, if that's the case, what is really good and what is really bad? What are good things that we should try to consume and pull within our life? And what are bad things? So in our time, there's a very deep teaching of Zohar Kadosh that even though it's a little bit out of probably everyone's, we'll call it expertise, I still think it's something that is sweet that we can all share and really use as a tool. There's this concept in Zohar Kadosh that there are layers to life. Every single form of life must have what we call in Hebrew a klipa, a shell. Zohar Kadosh says that the purpose of a shell and the purpose of a klipa, even though it doesn't have much meaning, and even though it doesn't have much value, is to protect life itself. So we can give a little analogy. It's like a fruit that grows in a tree. We're using a banana for example. What's valuable within the fruit is the meat that is inside. It's what is sweet. The fragile flesh that is hidden. But the only way that that fruit will be able to ever be possibly consumable is if there is a layer of unedible shell that protects it. Zohar Kadosh says there is one shell, which is the fourth shell, that is called Klipat Noga. In Aramaic, the word Noga is a word that actually describes a term. What is this term? It's a term of shining. A term of some sort of attraction. A term of something that pulls the eye to want it, to yearn for it. And that is why in many places in the Zohar we actually refer to Noga as a way to describe rubies or diamonds, things that pull our eye. Noga is the outer layer of all physical creation. Whether it be a cup, whether it be a person, whether it be an object, whether it be a building, everything. our eyes see is just the noga. So now, depending on the inner value, the shine of that noga will be also at a much greater level. Being that we are creations of outside, of shells. The Zohar Kadosh says we see our world in one way. And that is this concept of klipat noga, the outer layer. And that also determines a lot of our own value. Sometimes we see things that are very valuable in our eyes. It stems from the fact that there is a deep spiritual value within. We are being pulled to it just because of the outer shine of that klipat noga. It's very interesting about klipat noga is that throughout the teaching of the Zohar, it's referred to as both good and referred to as bad, which is something very unique. Because usually in the deep teachings of the Zohar, it's very black or white. There are not many gray areas. Either it's good or either it's bad. And suddenly you see this concept that you read that could be Kedushat Noga, the purity of Noga, and then in other places it says Tumat Noga, the impurity of Noga. Are we talking about the same thing? Are we talking about the same outer layer of shine that everything has? Or are we talking about something different that maybe we should learn and understand? The Zohar Kadosh says it's very simple. The idea of Klipat Noga is the shine that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put within all objects of our world to allow our eyes to put value. The Zohar Kadosh says what makes our world, all its objects, good or bad, isn't the objects themselves, but rather the intention in which we use those objects. In other words, I will tell you, you are all young. You should want to be wealthy. You should want to look for a beautiful husband or beautiful wife. You should want to have a big home. You should want to try to achieve. You shouldn't undersell yourself. You should want to try to be the biggest version of yourself. But in that journey, be very careful that what you are achieving and what you are working for, that the reasons be positive. That the reasons be purposeful. That the reasons be not just used for the sake of use, but rather used for the sake of taking the opportunity to come close to Hashem. And to live in Hashem's world. To drive Hashem's car. To eat Hashem's food. To live in Hashem's home. That's Geula. That's redemption. So redemption is not a magical door that opens in the sky. It's rather how we transform our world. A person can be in a big house, can have the most beautiful wine. For one person, it could be the most perfect setting for a beautiful Shabbat table. Invite all the family and bring life and drink the most expensive, luxurious wine. And for another person, it could be being alone, being empty, feeling cold, and shoving down a bottle of wine to forget all his troubles and the lack of satisfaction that he has in his life. It's not about what we have or what we want. Rather about what we're going to do with it. And as long as it's full of meaning and purpose, Abotai, that is our ticket back home. And this is actually something, Abotai, that we can see very simply. Okay, Bet HaMikdash. Bet HaMikdash was the house of Hashem. You would think that Bet HaMikdash should be spiritual. Not at all. Gold, leather, blood, wine. Seems very materialistic things. Doesn't seem like it would be something very spiritual. No, Abotai. Spiritual is not suffering. Spiritual is taking the most luxurious and most beautiful things of this world and repurposing it to being Kedusha. Repurposing it to bring it to a place of using it as an opportunity to live in Hashem's beautiful world. The more we could accomplish, the more we could achieve, the more we could amass for ourselves with a good purpose, would be our ticket home to redemption. And God forbid, also our ticket away to exile. You can see some type of history. You know, Zohar Kadosh says, Esav, was he a good guy or a bad guy? Very bad person. Zohar Kadosh says, if Esav was to do tshuva, us, Bnei Yaakov, his brother, would never have a chance. Why? Because Esav was powerful. He was full of knowledge. He was full of potential. But he lacked the ability to direct it in a positive manner. Our job, Abutai, is to be successful like Esav. To grow like Esav. To conquer like Esav. To amass like Esav. But to do it right. And to make sure that we use everything as a positive opportunity. So maybe we can say that is the key to what's happening here on Pesach. Bnei Israel are about to be redeemed, are about to be pulled out of their sufferings. What's the first thing to make it official that they are back home? Not just entering into the house, but rather what? Sitting on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's table. Where the first steps of leaving their suffering wasn't fasting at all, but rather making a feast. But this feast wouldn't be a feast for the sake of feast for consuming, but rather it would be a feast, a consumption, an eating, a absorbing for the sake of being in Hashem's world. And we see that that was clearly the ticket, the key to bringing the Geula. Consuming our world, living in our world. We see that there was in history even people that use this trick against us. There's this concept that on Purim, where Purim is like Pesach, they have to be close to each other. The Gemara says, Lismoch Geula Geula, the redemption should be close to the other redemption. It says that on Purim, we do our Similat Purim as an imitation. To imitate. To imitate who? Zohar Kadosh says to imitate the feast, the meal, not of Mordechai, or Bnei Israel, or of the celebrations, but rather we do this feast to imitate the feast of Achashverosh. Now let me remind everyone, who was Achashverosh? He wasn't the good guy. Achashverosh was the king that made the decree that the whole miracle of Pesach Purim is all about. Why are we imitating him? Why are we trying to copy him? If already we should do everything to try to be as far as possible than what he did. Maybe we can say something incredible. Achashverosh knew this trick. He knew this secret. He knew that all what the Jews need to do is consume this world and make it Hashem's world. And if this world that they consume is Hashem's world, then the world is redeemed. And on the opposite way, if that individual consumes for the sake of consumption, he will empty himself of Hashem, empty the world around him of Hashem, and just step one step closer to emptiness, to lack of comfort, to exile. Achashverosh had a plan. Maybe we can say that Achashverosh knew that in only a few years of time, the second temple is going to be built. So he had an idea. He said, with the second temple, won't just come a building, but rather will come a redemption. What can I possibly do to push redemption away from the inside? So he said, it's very simple. I will make a feast. For the sake of making a feast. And the goal of this feast that I will do will just to get them to eat and to drink and to consume, just to fill themselves and nothing more. And maybe like that, I would push them a little bit closer to exile and push them a little bit further from redemption. Purim, we imitate him. We try to copy his feast, but the difference is that that feast is not a feast because we want it, or because it's for the sake of a feast, but rather it's a feast for the sake of sitting and connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of being within the comfort of the owner of the house and showing him respect and consuming and sustaining ourselves from his livelihood and his protection and his around. Maybe we can say that is the same reason that before they left Egypt they needed a feast. Maybe we can say that is the exact same reason in order to enter into the Geula we will need to do Seudat Mashiach. And maybe we can say that in the holy holiday of Pesach, don't just sit didn't eat because we want to put 5 kazayot of matzah. We're not just sitting on any table. Rather, we're sitting on the table of who? Rather, we're sitting on the table of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we're sitting on the table of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it means one very simple thing. It means we're back home. And if we're back home, then all the lack of the control of this world and all the challenges and all the negativity shouldn't be here. Our Seudah of Pesach that we do is our way of saying HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If we're sitting on your table and if we are back home, then take away all the effects of a world that is exile. Bring us into redemption. We are your children that are dependent on your sustenance to give us that same life. And this is something I would tell you, if you follow throughout the entire Pesach, we lean to our left. We lean to our left to imitate what? To imitate kings and queens. Throughout the entire holiday, we do all these different things that normally should be against the halacha. Our sages of the Achidah say, because the reason that Leila said that is so unique and so strange, is because it's not our table. If it was your table, then you would have to be normal. Do kiddush, then hamotzi immediately. Not wait an hour and a half while you read the Haggadah. Chazal say, Pesach is the table of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like when all of us as a family will surround our tables at Pesach and make it clear that now we are all home from all the corners of the world, may it be the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveal us into His great home and bring us Be'ezrat Hashem to Biat Mashiach Tkenu B'mehera b'yameinu Amen.
Amen.
Any questions? Ken said it.
I would like to ask. So, I know that in Israel, they only do one night of prayer on Passover. However, if you're not in Israel, you're supposed to do 2 nights of prayers.
Yes.
Is the reason because this is like a home away from home type of thing? So we have to do like a prayer that we're home here, and like we feel at home there. What's the reason?
So you know what a chidush is? What is a chidush?
Like the prayer?
No, chidush. Chidush means someone comes up with a beautiful idea of Torah. I think you're up to something. I think that you have something very good in your hand. Think about it more. But the idea of the second day of Chag, from the root of the halacha, stems from a lack of gates. So the way that the calendar was counted at the time was based on 2 witnesses that needed to look at the moon shape and then see that the moon is being renewed. And then they would put fire on mountains to symbol that Rosh Chodesh is coming. And only in that way they were able to pass the message fast enough that they must start a new month. And therefore, with that new month, all the occurrences that happened in that new month. Now, that was in Yerushalayim. It means that anyone that was far from Yerushalayim, the message could take some time. So because of that delay, Chazal, 3,000 years ago, made it a point that anyone outside of Eretz Israel must do 2 days. So technically, according to the halacha, if we had a real Sanhedrin, they would look at the matter whether or not we need to do 1 day or 2 days. But nothing happens for no reason. There's a long Arizal, which Arizal was a big Kabbalist, that talks about the idea of Rosh Hashanah. He doesn't really mention Chutz La'aretz, but he just talks about this concept of what Rosh Hashanah is all about. So it says that Rosh Hashanah is the day of Tshuva. You must repent. Rosh Hashanah is the only holiday that even in Eretz Israel is not 1 day, it's 2 days. A lot of Israelis, they come and say, Rav, I'm Israeli, so I do 1 day of Rosh Hashanah. And Tzaddik, even if you were in Eretz Israel, you would have to do 2 days. Rosh Hashanah is the only day that even in Eretz HaKodesh you have 2 days. The way that the Arizal explained it, he said that the 2 days are 2 opportunities. Or if you miss the first opportunity to completely achieve what you're going out to try to get, then don't worry. You have the next day. The reason that we need 2 opportunities is because our whole year is dependent on it. So thing is applicable for us. We have a chance that nobody else has, and that is the first seder. You had a lot of people around you. You knew that you're supposed to pray for zivug because it's a big opportunity to pray for zivug on Pesach, or to pray for parnasa, livelihood. It's a big opportunity to pray for livelihood, but you got sidetracked. So word again, sidetracked, and you were distracted and you forgot. And then Israel, why? Wait now 365 days. Here, we have a chance that they don't have it. And that's no problem. Restart. And with this restart, you can really take the opportunity to make up for maybe even the sign that you didn't pray for. So for example, the first night you prayed for Panasa. The whole night you prayed for Panasa. You also want to get married. Don't worry. Both nights are considered to be like one. So now sit the whole night, pray for zivug. We have a chance to have double the time to achieve the same purpose. And that is change, obviously positive change in our life, and positive and interfering of Akadosh Baruch Hu. So we have a chance that nobody has. We have to take advantage of it. Maybe we can say that chance, and this is what I think you have to do something very nice, that chance of giving us 2 evenings is because we're literally in exile. We're literally outside of exile. So I think you think about it and share something beautiful in the Chag to your family that you thought of. Any other questions? Ken Sadika.
Firstly, thank you so much, Alex, for being first here. Second, my question is, how can we change our desire for the good, or how can we recognize that our intention for wanting something, desiring something needs something?
So first of all, we are literally built from the image of God. So what does that mean? It means that we don't want anything that wasn't installed within us. We don't act in any way that wasn't installed within us. We didn't create ourselves. Nobody programmed our brain for us. The only program that we were somewhat based off of is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So clearly, within our desires, within our wants, within our goals, within our nature of how we function, act, think, and feel, there's literally godliness within it. And that godliness is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's structure and shape and desires and thoughts and conscience. It's all the same thing. Our thoughts and what we want to achieve always comes from a deeper place. Always comes from an inner place. There is no such thing as desires that don't have a very deep source within them. And because everyone's single, you know what, yalla, I wouldn't speak about this in a big crowd, but we will speak about this. It's like having children. On one side, it's literal life. It's literally the first mitzvah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked from us. Till the land. It was the first thought that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for mankind. It's the most holy thing. Being that it's the most holy thing, it means that it's the most installed thing within our brain to want. The thing is, we need to control how we want it and how we are doing it, and making sure that we are doing it in a godly manner, fulfilling God's will, making it a part of God's world, making it a positive action, something that will give meaning, something that will give purpose. And you see that it works. It evens out, meaning that for the amount that we desire it, it's also equally to the amount of its importance in our life. We grow old and we realize that nothing matters. The only thing that matters is what? You know, what's the only thing that matters when a person reaches to the age of seeing his children grow? It's his children. So we were installed to want that. We were installed to desire it. More than anything else, I can guarantee that. We just need to know how to channel it. So I don't think it's changing what we want. Because we shouldn't change what we want. A person wants to be wealthy, want it, achieve it, do it. And as a rabbi, I will tell you that. Just do it properly, do it with meaning, and ensure that by the end of the day, it will give you fulfillment and not emptiness. It will be something that will comfort you and not something that will make you feel empty. Build a home and not send yourself on an empty, alone exile. So, not change it. Just ensure that what we are wanting is being done in a positive and in a godly manner. Is there any other questions? Ken Sadiq.
Do you have any good rabbi jokes?
Rabbi jokes. So to tell you the truth, Sadiq, I'm actually very against jokes because I have this very short-sighted, one-sided mentality where if you come to a class, you have to leave with Torah.
Sure.
But maybe we can bring up Yonah here and
How many jokes?
Ken Sadiq.
You spoke about living with purpose and getting
So
started.
that's the only question that actually gets me stressed.
Sorry.
Usually when there is questions, it's risky because if you don't have a good answer, then you did more damage than good.
Yeah.
But questions.
I can give you one after the fact. I'll give you one after.
I would love to hear one.
You spoke about having living with purpose and doing things in the spirit of God. How does one who doesn't currently feel that way or eat for the purpose of eating get to the point where they eat with the purpose of God or nourishment in their life?
So, I think that it's naturally installed within us. I think that desire to do good is a part of us as much as everything else. So I don't think it's something we necessarily need to do. We need to go out of our way to create it. I think it's already there. I think that a person needs to start to think about what will give any individual long-term purpose and happiness. And I think once you start thinking long-term, you realize that things start to change and the way you see life starts to change. So for example, if you're just eating for the sake of eating, you'll get very fat very fast. But if you're thinking a little bit long-term, you'll realize that I can't just consume because I desire to consume. There must be a place, time, and quantity in order to sustain in a long-term, proper manner. So I think without even needing to change us, because I think that God created all of us pretty well, it's just start to look a few days ahead, a few months ahead. Look a little bit longer term, and that's really where you start to see what is important, what you need, versus what you want. Because what you want will always be short-timed. What you need will always be something that will sustain you for a longer period of time. So that's what we think about to change. I don't think we need change. I think we need enlightenment, we need to be educated, and we have to be curious, not to change. Because God created each and every one of us perfectly. Just need to be educated and want to grow and want to be better, which I think is something that we all want to do financially, we all want to do with the way we look. So it should be our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Putting that aside, I think that making big changes in life are not sufficient. Because big changes in life don't last very long at all. When a person wants to make a big change, he finds that in faster than he would possibly imagine, he returns back to his old house. I believe in small pressure points. Small little moments that you give yourself a very, very clear change of direction. And we'll give an example. And I give this example all the time in classes. We had a student that has a big management company, real estate management. And he came to us and he said, I have a big problem. What's your big problem? He said, all my employees that do the management have a credit card. And the expenses are destroying the company. So I told him, Tzedek, just sit down with them. Be responsible. Sit down one by one and just look at the expenses and tell them what they shouldn't be doing. He says, Rav, I did this already 1,000 times. I can't make every decision with them. It's a very big company with many employees. He left. He came back and he said, Rav, I had an idea. What was his idea? He went to the cabinet and he threw out all the good coffee. And he replaced it with the worst tasting coffee that you can find. People came and they started to complain. They said, what is this coffee? So he said, since we really need to cut back on costs, I I decided that we have to buy the cheapest coffee that there is for sale. And people accepted it because they said we have to cut in cost. Instantly that month, the cost cut in half. So I was thinking about it. I said, first of all, this is genius, number one. But why did it work? That's the second question. Because it's not like he did any major change. He bought bad coffee. And after I thought about it, I realized it's actually very simple. He pressed a pressure point that every day that when they all went to drink their coffee, they said, oh my goodness, we have to cut the costs. So it's a pressure point that creates an effect throughout the day, throughout our life. Each individual needs to find that pressure. It could be being thankful for what you have, and doing it in a 30 or 60 second bracket, meaning you put a timer, 30 seconds to say what I'm grateful for. Or 60 seconds, but not more, not less. Exactly that amount of time. It could be a moment of tefillah. It could be a moment of a person giving more tzedakah than he should. Or helping his parents more than he should. Something that lags throughout the day. And I think even if it's something very small, naturally, we can move the boat and we can steer the boat and change our mindset in a very natural and, more importantly, sustainable way. Because getting up and saying, I'm not drinking and I'm not eating, 2 weeks maximum. And then you're back to your old habits. And maybe you'll be even worse than the first time. But the little pressure points, that's how we change ourselves. So you have to find it. You have to think, what can I do that can either have a very positive effect, like some women, we tell them to do chesed, go build boxes for people in need, go help an elderly. It could be however you see yourself, that will leave an imprint. Either from an inspiration or discomfort. It's a pressure point. It's supposed to not hurt, but it's supposed to grab your attention. And if it grabs your attention, it's a pressure point. Pressure points don't hurt. Look. Feel the pressure? Does it hurt? No. It just creates a lag. It lasts for a longer period of time. So, any other questions? Cancel. I hope you have a Hebrew system again.
So you were talking about desires, and a lot of people. So most often, people when they have desires, it's a connotation of good desires versus bad desires. Like, let's say someone has like a desire for something that everyone would view as bad versus a desire for something like, let's say, an example for me is like I desire knowledge, like I want to learn more. Would you say that connotation of desire isn't like a valid way? It's more the intention behind any desire could spin any desire towards.
Of course, I know people that desire to study very bad things. Very bad things. They think that Rav Pinto will be their key of studying very bad things, whether it be people, they're strange, especially when they wanted to get into like mystical things or something like that. So desire, even of study, could be very bad. It's all the same. There is no good and bad. It's just what we do with it, or what's the reason of us achieving it. Like we're going to use the example that I think it's the most proper. A person that's not happy for to eat something. After he eats it, or after it's too much of something, or whatever it is, what's left with him might not be the consumption. It will be the reason of what he did it for. And that's what sticks. So it could be a person that is upset, a person that does something that's not well. What sticks to him is the reason and the purpose. A positive one will stick to him because if he gave tzedakah a year ago, it's already gone. But that positive giving and action stays with the person, replaces the person a little bit, and the same thing for negative. So there is no bad. And that's what I think is very important, because when you think of this, we're very keen on labeling. But I don't think anything is bad. I think there are bad things we can do with things. But I don't think something is naturally bad. If it was naturally bad, wouldn't it have been created? God was very meticulous on what and how He created the world. Nothing is negative. Everything can be a positive. Everything can be a negative. Everything is naturally a positive. We just need to make sure that we use them in a positive. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, so it's more the desire and the action on that desire.
It's the meaning and the intention behind the action.
The intention behind the action.
Because desires are good. What desire is bad? Let's go backwards. Tell them. What desire has bad roots? Greed is a desire.
It's not greed.
Wishing others
desire
harm.
for drugs, a desire to take.
No. The desire for the drug is the desire to feel higher, to be released from a person's limitations. It's not necessarily for a person to just blank out. All our desires have pure roots. There are ways to fulfill, you can say, or achieve those desires, or whatever you want to call it, by finding a positive root. Endeavor, depart from. So it's nothing is bad. It's what we do. Any other questions? Zero. בעזרת השם רבותיי, מספרים ברכה והצלחה, שתהיה גדולה, רק ידענו ככתב וככתב, בעזרת השם הקדוש ברוך הוא אופן האור שערי שמיים, שערי פרנסה, שערי רפואה, שערי תורה, שערי סיפוק, שערי שמחה, שהקדוש ברוך הוא will hear all our prayers, give each and every one of you exactly what you need and what you're praying for, and we all have to come together with Biyad Mashiach Tzidkenu, Rabbi Amenu
There's one thing everyone here wants to wait for. Trust me.
One, two. How's everyone doing? Let's go! This is why the Rub hates events and I love events. This is why. The Rub actually committed, I was very surprised, we never do this, the Rub committed to seeing each person one-on-one here over the next 90 days in his office and having them all, literally everybody here, I've never seen this before in any class that we've done. So take advantage. The QR codes are on the piano and in front of the door. For more programming, for more events, the Rav gives incredible classes that you go higher than Elon Musk's rocket to the moon. Every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Rav, that's a good chance for a joke. And 7:30 p.m. every Tuesday night, but after Pesach, we're planning trips to Morocco. We have trips all around, all year round, and incredible things coming. Also Sunday night, every Sunday night, we have programs for ages 18 to 29. They're really awesome. A quarter of the people here are there. And one last thing. In case today you guys got the depth of the Torah, that is a guide to living a happy, meaningful life, as the Rav showed. But for anyone who wants to see the scientific proofs and evidence of nearly every single miracle that happened in Egypt, the splitting of the sea, everything, it is all in this book, and it will transform your entire Passover. Just make sure you send me a commission. I'm just kidding. And they're all right here for everyone to take. Have an amazing night, and please don't forget to scan the QR code. And the Rav wants to give some barachot so people can line up in line here. We'll have boys and girls here in line, and the Rav will give personal barachot. Thank you. With a Haggadah. Wow.